There are many figures in the Bible that we don't even realize how important they are. These figures grew in the shadow of other huge figures, so we were not exposed to them. One of them is Eliezer, a servant of Abraham. Some will say, among other things, that Eliezer helped shape humanity's future by fighting to take Rebekah to Isaac. Others will say, like Enoch, he was taken to God, by God at the end of his life, but the Bible does not mention it. Today we will try to figure out his most important character and his important moments from the moment of his appearance until the moment of his disappearance. Let's begin. Servant or slave. They are terms that bring up so many negative associations that it seems they cannot have an uplifting meaning. But one biblical figure proves that it is possible. Meet Eliezer, the servant of Abraham. Although the fascinating character of Eliezer appears many times in the book of Genesis, his name is explicitly mentioned only once, and all the other times he is referred to as a servant. Eliezer's story will be divided into 5 key points about his character. Number 1. Eliezer was given to Abraham as a slave or servant by Nimrod. According to the interpretation and in direct connection to his origin in Damascus and being a descendant of Canaan, the interpretation says that Eliezer was the son of Nimrod, who reigned in the days of Abraham and declared himself to be God. When Abraham refused to recognize Nimrod's divinity, he threw him into the furnace of fire. Miraculously, the fire burned only the chains that bound Abraham, but nothing happened to him. The miracle greatly impressed Nimrod, who gave him his son Eliezer to be his servant. Some dispute this and say that Eliezer was Nimrod's slave and not his son, and Nimrod gave him to Abraham as a token of gratitude and forgiveness for the miracle that happened to Abraham. And from here, Eliezer begins his journey in the Bible. The next time we meet Eliezer is in another fascinating biblical story, and, this one, is in the War of the 4 Kings. Number 2. Eliezer was Abraham's companion in the war against the 4 kings, and released Lot from captivity. A world war broke out between 2 groups of kings, and the 4 kings who won conquered huge territories and took their inhabitants, including Lot, Abraham's nephew. The Bible describes that Abraham came to release his nephew, when he was standing in a force of only 318 warriors. When Abram heard that his relative had been taken captive, he called out the 318 trained men born in his household and went in pursuit as far as Dan. Genesis 14 verse 14. However, a Hebrew interpretation of the Bible claims that Abraham's army was composed of only one soldier, Eliezer. According to the Hebrew Gematria, the name of Eliezer is number 318. Despite the small number of warriors or the only super warrior Eliezer, Abraham won and chased the losing kings all the way to Damascus. Number 3. Eliezer, as a matchmaker, was sent by Abraham to find a wife for Isaac. The main mention of Eliezer in the Bible is in his role as a matchmaker looking for a wife for his master's son, Abraham. This story is described in the Bible at great length. In old age, when Abraham feels that his days are numbered, he sends his faithful servant Eliezer to find a bride for his son, Isaac. By directing him to a specific destination from which he must bring the intended bride from among the daughters of the land, Ar-Naharaim, Abraham's homeland. Eliezer asks, "What will I do if the bride does not want to come to the land of Canaan to marry Isaac? If so, can I find a match for him from the local girls?" Abraham understands that Eliezer hopes to match Isaac with his Canaanite daughter, but he refuses because Eliezer is the grandson of the cursed Canaan who was cursed by Noah, unlike Abraham and Isaac, whose family received God's blessing. While Eliezer is on his way, he receives a series of miracles. The journey, whose timing was 17 days, took Eliezer and his group only 3 hours with the kind help of jumping the way that God assigned to Abraham's servant. At around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Eliezer and the group landed in Nahor, Abraham's hometown. When he arrives, he finds girls drawing water from the well, so he prays to God to help him find the right girl. He sets a sign: the girl who will show kindness and agree to water him and his camels, be the one. One of the girls does repay him with kindness, and in response to his question reveals to him her lineage, that she is Abraham's niece. Eliezer sees this as a sign from heaven and negotiates with her family members in an attempt to convince them to give him her as a bride for Isaac, his master's son. But the plan fails. The next morning, Eliezer asks to return to his country to his master's house, but then Rebekah's mother and brother try to stop him. He asks them not to delay him because God accompanies his way, and after due process, they agree that they will ask Rebekah what she thinks. Rebekah hears the question of her mother and her brother, and she responds with words, "I will go." Rebekah joining Eliezer. At that exact moment, Isaac left for the cave of the patriarchs to pray over the grave of his mother. The group meets with him, and Rebekah, who is so impressed by the young man in front of her, falls off the camel. She asks Eliezer about the identity of the man, and he answers her, "He is my Lord." Rebekah modestly covers her face with a scarf, and Eliezer tells Isaac the series of miracles that happened to him. Number 4. The rejection of Eliezer's daughter. This event took place just before Abraham sent Eliezer to find a wife for Isaac. Eliezer tells him that he wants to marry his daughter to Isaac. Even with all of Eliezer's virtues, he has one limitation. He is a descendant of Canaan son of Ham, and therefore he was placed under the curse that his great-grandfather, Canaan, was cursed by Noah. This curse placed Eliezer, despite his righteousness, in the status of accursed. God told Abraham that all the peoples of Canaan were going to leave the promised land. God specified the nations as those expected to be punished and killed. Abraham is aware of the fact that the daughters of Canaan do not have a blessing of life, and they have no promise to inherit the land, so he asks for a bride who is not from the daughters of Canaan to guarantee Isaac and his seed the promised land. If Isaac marries a daughter of Canaan, her family may claim ownership of the land. And Abraham must prevent this. For this reason, Abraham sent his sons from the Hagar and Keturah out of the promised land. Number 5. Eliezer was among the few who entered to Eden. According to commentators, Eliezer entered the Garden of Eden during his lifetime, as did Enoch, Elijah, and 10 other righteous people. But why? It begins with God telling Abraham about the great reward he will receive for his deeds, but Abraham responds in bewilderment. "What is the use of the large reward you want to give me, when I have no sons and the person closest to me is my slave?" And Abram said, "O Lord Jehovah, what will you give me, and I am walking in poverty, and the son of my household is Eliezer of Damascus." Genesis 15 verse 2. The verse tells us that Eliezer was a member of a household, the manager of Abraham's household who was in charge of all his assets. And here is the interesting answer: Abraham defined Eliezer as the manager of all his wealth, with whom he fought his war against the 4 kings. And also he returned Lot from captivity, and despite all this Abraham refused to take his daughter as a bride for Isaac. Eliezer's origin is from Canaan, where he was condemned to be a slave. Abraham appreciated Eliezer but explained to him that there was no possibility of uniting into one family, and his daughter would not be able to marry Isaac. Eliezer abandons his desires and is entirely devoted to the task of doing his Lord's will, even though he receives a negative answer to his request. His special personality allows him to deal with his situation in a noble way. And perhaps thanks to this wonderful devotion, and the tremendous experience of encountering a refusal to accept such a harsh statement, and to continue the mission with all his strength, he can get out of a cursed rule and enter into a blessed rule. In the longest chapter in the book of Genesis, there is a detailed description of Eliezer's insistence on taking Rebekah as the bride for Isaac. He fulfilled his role in his life so perfectly that he did not die, and entered heaven with his body. We hope you learned something new today. If you did, give this video a like and share it with your friends. You can share with us what you know by leaving a comment below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more informative and entertaining content. Thank you so much and see you next time.